My fiancé said, "I'm moving in with Emma. We're having a baby together." I replied, "Congratulations." Then I canceled his credit card, removed myself from his car lease, and changed every single password in my life. 6 hours later, he was at my door, sobbing, suitcase at his feet, because Emma had already kicked him out. I am 34 years old. I am writing this from my kitchen table in Austin, Texas, staring at a cup of coffee that went cold 30 minutes ago, trying to figure out how your entire future can implode before the workday is even over. It was a Wednesday, around 2:15 in the afternoon. My phone lit up on my desk and I saw his name, Ryan, 32, and I smiled before I even picked up. That's the cruelest part of loving someone deeply. Your body reacts before your brain catches up. My body hadn't gotten the memo yet. Ryan was my fiancé of 8 months. We had been together for almost 3 years. He had been living in my house, the one I bought, the one I carry the mortgage on for the past 14 months. We had a wedding date on the calendar. I had already put a deposit down on the venue. I answered on the second ring. "Hey, baby, Madison." His voice was flat, formal, rehearsed, like someone reading off a card they'd written and rewritten all morning. "I need to tell you something." My stomach dropped. You know that feeling, that cold, hollow roll through your chest before something terrible arrives? Your body knows. It always knows. "I'm moving in with Emma. We're going to have a baby together. I'm coming by this weekend to get my things." Emma, his personal trainer. The one he'd been working with 3 mornings a week for the past 5 months. The sessions I had encouraged. The sessions I had been proud of him for sticking with, because he'd always struggled to stay consistent with fitness. I had even Venmo'd him money twice when his gym account ran low, thinking I was being supportive. I was funding the affair. The silence stretched out between us. I could hear him breathing. I could hear someone in the background of wherever he was, a parking lot, maybe, or a park. And underneath the cold flood of disbelief, something in me went very, very still. "Congratulations," I said. I don't know where it came from. It arrived without effort, calm, flat, with no crack in it. "That's it," he sounded almost offended. "That's seriously all you have to say? What else is there, Ryan?" "I don't know, I thought you'd be upset. I thought you'd fight for me or something." And there it was. He had called me in the middle of a Wednesday afternoon to blow up my life, and his complaint was that I wasn't reacting dramatically enough. "You're having a baby with another woman," I said quietly. "There's nothing left to fight for. You already made the decision." I hung up. I sat at my desk for exactly 3 minutes. I watched the clock. Then I picked up my phone and I started making calls. First, the credit card. Ryan was an authorized user on one of my accounts. I had added him 11 months ago when we started talking seriously about merging our finances. I called the card company before I even left my office building. Had him removed immediately. The representative barely paused. Second, the car. Ryan drove a leased Audi A4 that I had co-signed for 9 months ago because his credit history had a few gaps that made the dealership nervous. The payments came out of my account automatically. I logged into the leasing portal from my phone in the elevator, removed my payment method, then called the company directly and explained I was removing myself as co-signer effective immediately. The leasing agent explained that Mr. Ryan Cole would need to qualify on his own income or return the vehicle by the end of the billing period. His salary as a personal trainer was not going to make that happen. I drove home. Then I changed everything. Wi-Fi password, front door alarm code. Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, Spotify, logged all devices out, new passwords, all of it. The gym membership I had added him to 7 months ago as a birthday gift. Canceled. The joint savings account we had opened for the wedding. I withdrew my half, which was most of it, and moved it back to my personal account. The whole process took about 2.5 hours. Methodical, efficient. I did not cry. Not yet. By 5:00 p.m., I was sitting in my living room with a glass of wine, everything secured, waiting to see what would happen next. I didn't have to wait long. My doorbell rang at 6:48 p.m. I already had the security camera pulled up on my phone. I sat in the armchair and watched for a moment before I moved. Ryan was standing on my front porch with a rolling suitcase and a duffel bag. His eyes were red and swollen. He was still wearing his gym clothes, the same ones he trained clients in. He looked absolutely lost. He also looked like he expected me to fix it. I opened the door but left the chain on. "Madison," his voice broke. "Please, we need to talk. Emma, she told me to leave. She said she needs more time and that she wasn't ready for me to move in yet, and she's staying with her sister and I have nowhere. Ryan, please just let me in, just for tonight. I just need one night to figure things out." I looked at him through the 3-inch gap the chain allowed. This man had called me at 2:15 in the afternoon to announce he was leaving me for the woman he'd been sleeping with. And now, 6 hours later, he was on my porch asking me to take him back in. The breathtaking audacity of it was almost something to admire. "Why did Emma ask you to leave?" I asked. He shifted. His jaw tightened. She said it was too fast. She needs space. Or, I said, she found out you were still engaged to me when she got pregnant, and she's not sure she wants to be someone's backup plan any more than I do. The silence confirmed it. "That sounds like an Emma problem," I said, "not a Madison problem. You can't just cut me off. The card got declined. The car payment didn't go through. The streaming accounts don't. You told me you were moving in with Emma. I respected that decision. Those are Emma's responsibilities now. Madison, please, just for tonight, one night." "No, Ryan," I kept my voice even, steady. "You made your choice this afternoon. I'm honoring that choice. You should call Emma or call your parents. Figure it out." His face moved through desperate, then angry, then something that looked almost like genuine panic. "This is insane. You're punishing me for being honest with you." "I'm not punishing you. I'm accepting your decision." I closed the door. I turned the deadbolt. He knocked for about 8 minutes. Then he stopped. Then it was quiet. I stood in the dark hallway with my back against the door and I breathed, and the house felt like mine again in a way it hadn't in 14 months. I finished the wine. I called my best friend Danielle in Chicago. I talked for 2 hours. And somewhere in hour 2, I finally cried, not for losing Ryan, I realized, but for the version of him I'd believed in, which had apparently never existed in the first place. By Thursday morning, the texts had started. Ryan had found ways around the block, unknown numbers, what appeared to be a borrowed phone. At one point, a Google Voice number that lasted about 40 minutes before I blocked that too. "Madison, please. I know I destroyed everything. Emma doesn't want me there right now. I'm in a hotel and I cannot keep paying for it. I made the worst mistake of my life. Please just talk to me." I screenshotted every single message and saved them in a folder. I did not respond to any of them. Thursday afternoon, his sister Brittany called my cell. "Madison, what is going on? Ryan is losing his mind. He's at some cheap hotel off the highway and he says you canceled everything and he can't. Brittany." I kept my voice warm because I had always liked Brittany and this wasn't her fault. "Ryan told me Wednesday afternoon that he was leaving me to move in with Emma and have her baby. I respected that decision. Everything I did afterward was just accepting the reality he announced. He made a terrible mistake and he knows it. He made a choice. There's a difference. You're being so cold about this. I'm being clear, those aren't the same thing." I wished her well and ended the call. Friday morning, his mother Linda called. Linda, who had sat at my dinner table. Linda, who had once told me, over wine on my back porch, that she had always hoped Ryan would find someone like me. Linda, who I had genuinely loved as a prospective mother-in-law. I answered because she deserved to hear my voice. "Madison, I am appalled by what my son did. I want you to know that. What he did was wrong and he knows it." A pause. "But he's my son, and he's scared. And I'm asking you, woman to woman, if there's any way, Linda." My voice was gentle. I hear you, and I know this is painful for your whole family, but Ryan announced he was starting a new life with someone else. I didn't throw him out. He left. I just stopped subsidizing a life he told me he didn't want anymore. She tried guilt. Then she tried practicality. Then she said very quietly that Ryan had always had a tendency to run toward shiny things and that she had worried about this and that she blamed herself a little. I almost softened at that. Linda was being honest in a way Ryan never had been. Linda, I said, I hope he grows from this, I genuinely do, but I can't be the person who cushions that growth for him. You understand that? She said she did. She said she was sorry. I believed her on both counts. I hung up and stared out my kitchen window for a long time. The full picture came out in pieces, the way it always does. By the end of the first week, I had learned, through a mutual friend named Claire who ran in Austin's fitness community and had no particular reason to protect Ryan, that Emma was not just his client. She had been training with Ryan for over a year. She was 27. She had moved to Austin from Raleigh about 18 months ago, didn't have deep roots here yet, and had apparently believed, completely, genuinely believed, that Ryan was in the process of ending things with me. He had told her we were basically over, that we'd grown apart, that he was just staying in the house while he figured out logistics. He had told her this while wearing my ring on his right hand, flipped over so she wouldn't see it, and while using my streaming passwords on her couch on the nights, he told me he was doing late client sessions. Emma found out the truth the same way a lot of women find out. She Googled. She found my Instagram. She saw the engagement announcement. She saw the ring. She saw the caption that said, he asked, I said yes with the date, which was 4 months into whatever Ryan had been telling her about our relationship being over. From what Claire told me, Emma's reaction had not been quiet. She had confronted Ryan directly. He had apparently tried to talk his way through it, a skill he had clearly been developing for some time. But Emma was 27, not naive, and she had done the math on the timeline. The pregnancy, the engagement, the lies stacked on top of lies. She told him to get out. That same Wednesday afternoon, and then he had called me. I sat with that for a long time. The thing is, and I want to say this carefully because it matters, Emma didn't do this to me. Ryan did. Emma thought she was in a relationship with a man who was almost single. She thought she was the choice he was moving toward. She was lied to just as thoroughly as I was, just in different directions. She was 27, newly pregnant, with no solid support system in Austin, and the man she thought was her future had just revealed himself to be someone else entirely. She didn't kick him out to hurt him. She kicked him out because she realized she'd been handed a version of him that didn't exist. I did not reach out to her. I still think that was right. She had enough to navigate without a phone call from the fiancé. But I stopped thinking of her as a villain the moment I understood the full picture. Ryan had 2 women who trusted him. He used both of them. He lied to both of them. And when both safety nets disappeared at the same moment, he had nowhere to land. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern. On Monday of the second week, a certified letter arrived at my office. Not an email, not a text. A physical, certified, signed-for letter delivered to my workplace. It was 3 pages, handwritten. I read it standing at my desk and had to sit down halfway through the second page. Page 1 was an extended account of how much Ryan loved me and how fear and confusion had driven him to make a devastating error. There were 2 full paragraphs about feeling pressure and losing himself in the relationship, which was interesting, given that he had proposed to me 7 months prior without, to my knowledge, raising a single concern about feeling pressured. Page 2 was about Emma. It described at some length how she had pursued him, how he had been in a vulnerable place, how things had spiraled beyond his control. This section leaned very heavily on passive voice. Situations had developed. Things had happened. He had found himself. Page 3 was where it went somewhere I genuinely had not anticipated. He requested, in writing, certified, delivered to my place of work, that I cover his hotel costs while he stabilized his situation. He also suggested couples counseling to work through the betrayal and explore whether we could rebuild. If I was open to that path, the betrayal, his word, his framing, underlined. I forwarded photos of every page to my attorney friend Sophie before I had even finished my afternoon coffee. Her response, 20 minutes later over the phone: "Save absolutely everything. If this escalates, this letter alone tells a very complete story about his mindset." Also, a pause, and I could hear her trying not to laugh. "He's asking you to pay for the hotel he needed because he left you." Page 3, I confirmed. "Save it." I saved it. Tuesday brought news from my bank. Ryan had attempted to use the credit card, the one I had canceled 6 days earlier at 4 different locations. A gas station on South Lamar, a Whole Foods, a restaurant. The bank flagged the activity as potential fraud and called me directly. I explained the situation, confirmed he was no longer an authorized user, and asked them to note that any future attempts were unauthorized. Wednesday, his parents showed up at my house unannounced. I watched them on the security camera for a full 3 minutes before I answered. Frank and Linda Cole stood on my porch looking the way people look when they've driven 40 minutes to have a conversation they already know won't go the way they need it to. Frank spoke first. He had always been the steadier of the two. "Madison, we know what he did was wrong. We're not here to excuse it. He's our son, and he's in real trouble, and we need to know if there is any path." "Frank," I said, "I hear you, and I know you're trying to help your son. That's what good parents do. But Ryan made adult decisions, and these are the adult consequences. I am not able to soften them for him. He's going to lose the car. Yes, he can't sustain the hotel. That sounds accurate. So what is he supposed to do? He could move in with you. He could find a roommate. He could have a real conversation with Emma about co-parenting and figure out a stable base from there. There are options. None of them involve me." Linda started to say something. Frank touched her arm. They left 15 minutes later. I closed the door, sat down on my couch, and stared at the ceiling. The entitlement was staggering. Not just Ryan's, the assumption from all sides that I was a resource to be managed, a stability to be borrowed, a safety net that should stay open even after the person had already jumped. I was not a safety net. I was a person who had been lied to for 5 months. There is a difference. I go to the same gym every Tuesday and Thursday evening. It's a small strength training facility on South Congress, the kind that's been there forever and has none of the trendy equipment and all of the actual results. I have been going there for 4 years. Ryan had never set foot in it. He had his own gym, through work, or so I thought. 3 weeks and 2 days after the phone call, I was mid-set on a Tuesday evening when I saw him walk in. He spotted me immediately. He crossed the floor like he'd rehearsed the walk. "Madison, please, just 5 minutes." I finished my set. I set down the weight. I looked at him. "You have 3 minutes." "I'm timing it." His jaw tightened, but he nodded. "I know I don't deserve this conversation. I know what I did. But I need you to understand, Emma and it was never supposed to be what it became. I got into something I didn't know how to get out of, and then she told me about the pregnancy and I panicked, and I made the single worst phone call of my entire life. 2 minutes. I miss you. I miss our life. I miss this city, which sounds insane given that I live here too, but I mean our version of it, the way we did it together. I miss knowing where I was going." His voice cracked on the last sentence. "I miss you, Madison." 1 minute. "I know we can get through this if you just give me the chance to. Time's up, Ryan." I picked up my water bottle. I looked at him steadily. "You didn't make a mistake. You made hundreds of decisions. Every single morning for 5 months, you decided to continue. You decided to keep training her, keep lying to me. You decided to propose to me in the middle of it. You decided to keep cashing my Venmos for your gym account. Not one decision. 5 months of decisions every single day. I know that. I'm not The fact that Emma turned out to see through you the same way I eventually had to doesn't make what you did a mistake. It makes it a consequence, and I'm not the person who gets to absorb that consequence for you. But I love you." I looked at him for a long moment. "No," I said. "You loved the stability. You loved the house and the card and the clean life I had built. You loved having someone who handled things. Emma offered something different, excitement, newness, the thrill of something secret, and you wanted both. You wanted to keep what I provided while having what she offered. That's not. And when Emma found out what I already know, that you're not who you presented yourself to be, she did what I should have done the moment that call came in." I picked up my bag. "Don't come back to this gym, Ryan. This one is mine." I walked out. A text from Brittany arrived that night. "You're a cold person, Madison. Ryan is staying in his car." I stared at it for a moment. Then I typed back, "He chose Emma. These are Emma's consequences to manage." Then I blocked Brittany's number. Then I went to bed and slept better than I had in weeks. It has been 2 weeks since Ryan announced he was leaving me for Emma, and the fallout has taken a turn that I genuinely could not have written. Through Claire, through mutual contacts in Austin's fitness community, the full picture has come into focus. And it is worse, for Ryan, than anything I could have engineered. Emma, upon discovering the full scope of Ryan's deception, had not simply asked him to leave her apartment. She had also contacted the gym where Ryan worked as a trainer. She had filed a formal complaint about the nature of their relationship and the lies he had told her during it. The gym's HR process was ongoing, but Ryan had been placed on administrative leave pending review. His income, which was already inadequate to cover the Audi lease independently, had effectively paused. He had been staying in his car for 3 days before his parents finally relented and let him move into their guest room in Cedar Park. But from what I heard through Claire, Linda had made her feelings about Emma and about Ryan's choices extremely clear, and the Cole household was not what anyone would describe as a peaceful environment. And then the detail that genuinely made me set down my coffee cup. Emma had apparently reached out to Ryan's previous girlfriend, a woman named Kayla, who had dated Ryan for 2 years before me, and they had compared notes. Kayla's account of their relationship had enough overlap with mine to suggest that the pattern did not begin with Emma. He had done versions of this before. A man who needed a stable woman building a life, a reliable foundation, someone to co-sign and support and maintain. And alongside that, the excitement of something secret, something that made him feel chosen in a different way. And when the secret became real, became a pregnancy, became something with consequences, he reached back for the stability. Not because he loved it, because it was useful. I sat in my kitchen in Austin, Texas, on a Thursday morning, and I let myself feel the full weight of that. 3 years. A mortgage I took on with someone in mind. A wedding deposit I will never fully recover. The version of the future I had built in my head, carefully and lovingly, around a person who had been performing the role of reliable partner while quietly living something else entirely. I let myself feel it. All of it. And then I made a second cup of coffee and I called Danielle and I said, "I think I've been grieving a person who was never quite real." And she said, "Yeah, I think that might be the most painful kind." And she was right. It has been 1 month. The contact attempts have not stopped, they've just changed shape. Ryan has cycled through every available channel. Unknown numbers, email, a LinkedIn message, which I found almost creative. His mother has called twice more. Not to pressure me, actually, but to apologize, which I appreciated, and which told me something about Linda that made me sad for her. The truly remarkable development of week 4 was a second letter. Not certified this time, just a regular envelope, mailed to my home address, which means he still had it memorized or had written it down somewhere. This letter was shorter, 2 pages. The tone had shifted from the first one, less self-pity, more negotiation. He had done a lot of thinking, he wrote. He understood that he had been wrong. He was in therapy, he said, at his parents' insistence, I suspected, and his therapist had encouraged him to make amends where possible. The amends he was proposing, that I agree to a conversation, just one conversation, that I consider the 3 years we'd had and whether they were worth some attempt at repair. There was no request for money in this one, which was either growth or strategy. I was no longer confident I knew the difference with Ryan. Sophie said to save it. I saved it. I did not respond. What I did instead, I called the Audi dealership and confirmed the repossession had been processed. It had. The car was back on the lot. Ryan was, as far as I knew, still driving his mother's decade-old Camry. I confirmed with the gym that the membership I had added Ryan to was canceled. It was. I closed the joint savings account we had opened for the wedding. My half, which was most of it, had already been moved. The remaining balance, Ryan's contributions from the past few months, was transferred to him via the account details on file. That last part surprised people when I told them. Danielle said, "You didn't have to do that." "It was his money," I said. "He doesn't deserve the gesture." "It's not a gesture, it's just accurate." I did not take what wasn't mine. That's the whole point. I took back what was mine. Every resource, every access, every convenience I had been providing. And I left his. There is a version of this story where I am the villain, where I am cold and calculating and punishing a man who made a mistake. I have seen that version suggested in some of the messages that came through mutual friends. The ones who think that love means absorbing consequences for someone else indefinitely. But I am not cold. I was warm for 3 years. I was genuinely, fully warm toward a person who was lying to me from month 4 onward. The warmth was real. The person I was warm toward was, in significant ways, a performance. I am not punishing Ryan. I am just no longer performing the role of the person he needed me to be. It has been 3 months since a Wednesday afternoon phone call took my future and rearranged it into something I didn't recognize. Here is where everything stands. Ryan has moved out of his parents' house in Cedar Park and into a 1-bedroom apartment in Round Rock with a roommate he found through an app. His administrative leave from the gym resolved. He was not terminated, but he was required to sign a conduct agreement, and he lost his senior trainer status, which took his income back to an entry level he hasn't been at since his mid-20s. He is, by all accounts, humbled in ways that were long overdue. Emma had the baby, a boy. I found out through Claire, who mentioned it quietly over text one evening. She named him Thomas. I thought about that name for a while. Thomas is a solid name. I hope Thomas has a good life. I mean that without any irony at all. Ryan and Emma are in an official co-parenting arrangement. From what I understand, it is not warm. They communicate through an app designed for separated parents. Ryan is paying child support. He is not the involved, present partner Emma thought she was choosing, but he is showing up, at least functionally, and that is something. Whether Thomas grows up with a father who is genuinely present or merely technically compliant, I don't know. That's a story that hasn't finished yet. About 6 weeks ago, I was walking through the Domain on a Saturday, running errands, and I saw Ryan across the way. He was with a woman I didn't recognize, not Emma, someone new, and he was holding a coffee and laughing at something she'd said. He looked fine. He looked like himself, or the version of himself I used to know. For one moment, I felt something. Not jealousy, not grief exactly, more like recognition. That shared history, 3 years of ordinary mornings and inside jokes and the specific texture of a life built alongside someone. Then I thought about the phone call, about the certified letter requesting I fund his hotel, about "I thought you'd fight for me." I finished my coffee and I went home. Last week, Brittany, who had unblocked me at some point or created a new account, sent a message asking if I'd be willing to help Ryan with a security deposit for the Round Rock apartment, for old times' sake, because I had always cared about him. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed, "Ryan chose Emma to build his next chapter with. That chapter's expenses aren't mine. Then I blocked her again. The entitlement never stops, even at 3 months, even with all the consequences fully in play. There will always be someone who believes that because I once loved him, I owe him something indefinitely. I don't. Love is not a debt that runs in perpetuity. Love is not a resource that keeps distributing after the relationship ends. I gave everything I had to give to a person who, it turned out, was only partially present for it. What I kept for myself afterward was not cruelty. It was mine. A few weeks ago, I was at a bookstore on a Saturday afternoon. One of those good ones, the kind with a coffee bar and tables and no particular reason to leave quickly. And I was standing in the middle of a quiet aisle, holding a book I didn't need, and I realized with a kind of quiet surprise that I was genuinely happy. Not relieved, not numb, not performing, doing fine for the benefit of the people who had been checking on me, just happy. In the ordinary, unremarkable, deeply sustaining way. It caught me off guard. I hadn't been expecting it to arrive like that, on a Saturday between shelves. Here is what I have rebuilt in 3 months. The house is mine again, fully and completely. The mortgage was always mine. I carry it. I always did, but now the house feels like it too. There are flowers on the kitchen table. I kept meaning to do that when Ryan was here and somehow never did. He mentioned once, casually, that fresh flowers made him sneeze, and I had just absorbed that fact and rearranged my preferences around it without even noticing. That is a small thing, but small things accumulate. The finances are mine. The streaming accounts are mine. There is wine in the rack that no one will open without my say-so. I am sleeping through the night, which I had not been doing for at least the last year of our relationship. I didn't realize how much low-grade anxiety I had been carrying. The unanswered texts, the late returns, the explanations that were just slightly off, until it was gone and my body finally remembered what rest felt like. I started seeing someone new about a month ago. Her name is Nora. She's 36. She runs a landscape architecture firm here in Austin, and she has opinions about water features in drought conditions that are, genuinely, fascinating. On our 3rd date, she told me, unprompted, "I want you to know I don't have anything complicated going on. What you see is what's here." I didn't say much in response. I just thought, oh, this is what it's supposed to feel like. We'll see where it goes. I'm not in a rush. What I want to say to anyone who is standing at the beginning of what I just came through, the moment someone tells you who they are and what they've chosen, believe them. Not with cruelty. Not with vengeance. Just with clarity. You do not owe anyone a safety net that they dismantled themselves. What I did was not elaborate revenge. It wasn't dramatic. It was just accurate. I removed my resources from a situation I had been told, clearly, was no longer mine. I stopped funding a life I was no longer part of. I let the natural consequences of his choices arrive, because the only alternative was to absorb them myself. I was not going to absorb them. I had carried enough. The life on the other side of all of this is quieter than the one I thought I was building. It is smaller in some ways and larger in others. There are flowers on my table and wine in my rack, and a woman who tells me the truth. There is sleep. There is the version of this city that is mine again. Ryan gambled on being my exception. He bet that I would take him back, that the stability I offered would outlast the consequences of what he'd done, that the safety net would still be there when everything else fell through. He lost that bet. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, the best thing that can happen to you is being forced to build the life that was always supposed to be yours. Thank you for watching till the end. Do subscribe. See you in the next one. Bye.